few people post online about the fact that there was a hearing, a public hearing tonight about the master street plan. And so I was expecting maybe a couple people. I did see a few people post online about the fact that there was a hearing, a public. Oops, I can hear myself. The I guess it's YouTube. And so I was expecting maybe a couple people.
That was funny.
Yeah, I know. I was like, wow, I said that just a second ago. And that person, who is that? And I'm like, wait a minute, that's me.
It was confusing because I wasn't paying attention.
So we did a test earlier today and we found there's about a 30-second delay, at least when we were doing it from YouTube to Zoom, from real life to YouTube. So anyways, okay. So we are now we're being broadcast on YouTube and we're being recorded. So ready to start whenever.
Okay, let me just make sure I have the correct agenda here before I start talking. Okay, well, I want to welcome everyone to the Planning Commission for Alpine City on September 15th, 2020. The meeting is being held via Zoom. There are some of our Planning Commission members at City Hall, and Austin Roy, the city planner, is kind of hosting this meeting from City Hall. You can also watch it on YouTube, which everybody should be aware of, that we also have people who may be watching from YouTube. So we'll go ahead and get started. So we have with us tonight from Planning Commission, Sylvia Christiansen and Ed Bush and Ethan Allen and Troy Slade and John McKay and myself, Jane Greiner. And we've excused Alan McDonald. From the city, we have Austin Roy, who is the planner, and we have Jed Muhlstein, who is the city engineer, and we have Marla Fox, who's recording the meeting. And we will start with an opening prayer by John McKay. I don't know why I say that, John. And then I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So,
our Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be gathered in the capacity of a Planning Commission meeting for the city of Alpine. We're grateful for the favorable circumstances in which we find ourselves, for the beautiful community in which we live. We ask thy guidance this night that we might exercise wisdom and managing the issues and agenda items that have come before us. We're grateful for our opportunities to serve. We ask thy blessings upon our community and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, if everyone will stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then if everyone will put themselves on mute but myself. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks for joining us with that. And now we have public comment. So if anyone has emailed public comment that they would like to have read in the meeting, or I suppose if anyone has mentioned on YouTube that they are interested in making a public comment, this is comments for any item that is not on the agenda for tonight. Austin, do we have any emails?
Okay, so we do not have any emails. And then just remember, we have about a 30-second delay for YouTube. So we'll just wait a few more seconds here. But
do you show that we have
actually, I don't even think anybody's watching on YouTube.
I was gonna say, do you show the count of people who are watching there? So that gives us an idea.
So yeah, I have no comments.
Okay, great.
They were talking about it on our community Facebook link.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay.
I did answer one of the, posts.
Yeah.
What this was, right? So.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, which may have cleared it up. So that's.
I also referred to them that they can look at the packet. They seem to. Many people don't realize they can actually look at our packet. It gets published ahead of time, so they can kind of scroll through and see what it's about. Yeah.
Right. That was a great call out. When we had a mayor's message that would go out, we would attach the packet to the whole community, anyone who wanted it every week, but I don't believe we have those messages going out anymore. Okay, so let's go ahead and move to our action items. And the first one we have is a public hearing for the general plan transportation element. So Austin, if you want to introduce that, then we'll open the public hearing on that.
Yes. Okay. So this is for our general plan mass transportation element. So we actually have been, the planning commission, when I say we, I mean the planning commission has been looking at this and drafted language for this actually back in August. And so it's gone before the city council. They've kind of looked at it. They approved of the language. However, we still, in order to adopt this, we have to hold a public hearing. And so that's what we're doing here tonight. You know, there wasn't, I was hoping there'd be a bit better turnout. Well, it looks like we have another person on YouTube, so maybe we do have someone here. And so this is the language again that was prepared drafted by the Planning Commission on August 4th. And so what we're doing here is we're holding a public hearing, and then this Planning Commission needs to make a recommendation to adopt this element of the general plan. And so as everyone knows, the city council is currently working on the general plan, and they will be adopting a new general plan eventually. However, they kind of wanted to get this element out in front of everything else and get this adopted as soon as possible. And so that's why this is kind of coming forward right now before the rest of the general plan. And then to complement this element of the general plan, we've also had the street master plan is being updated, which was already looked at and recommendation made. And then a new ordinance has been written that will also kind of reinforce this element of the general plan. So that's what we're doing here tonight, and holding a public hearing. So. And it looks, Jane, you're on mute.
I see your mouth moving.
Thank you. We'll open the public hearing, and if there's anyone who has emailed in comments on the public hearing, or we'll give it 30 seconds to see if anyone has comments on YouTube that they would like to make concerning this ordinance change. I guess it's not ordinance change, but language change to the master plan. We'll give Austin a minute to look for that.
Okay, yeah, there's no one on YouTube right now, and I have no emails, so it looks like there is no comment.
All right,
We've
we'll go
got about 40 seconds since she opened it up, so nobody.
Okay,
Yes,
good to know. Thank you. I know I try to keep that on as well, but for some reason I'm having trouble finding the link tonight. So anyway, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this, and we'll move into any kind of discussion from the Planning Commission members. If you've had a chance to review any changes, maybe Austin, do you want to read through any changes we made to it so that everyone's clear on what we're discussing? Just let them know there's
so I can read through this really quick. So what you have on your screen before you is what's being proposed. Okay, perfect.
So it's just the addition of 1.6, which we combine.
So yeah, it's really 1.6, and then we're crossing out that the end of 1.3.
Okay.
Which talks about regional integration.
Right. Okay, perfect. So limit intermunicipal street connections to existing plant connections only. Ensure that street connections to other municipalities outside the city boundaries are compatible with the goals and policies of the general plan, and require city council approval, and include required updates to the general plan, street master plan, and applicable ordinances. So any commentary or a motion?
Long, but I think it addresses everything we wanted to address.
Hey, Austin, I know in city council meeting, they were talking about the definition of municipalities and if that included like the county or not.
Yeah.
What did they finally?
That's a great point. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So when they were looking at the ordinance, which is, that's been proposed, they actually made an addition to it. So it said intermunicipal connections, and they added basically and unincorporated county. And so David Church, it was of his opinion that intermunicipal does not include county. And so depending on which attorney you ask, that you probably get a different answer, but in his opinion, it did not cover it. And so he wanted to add that additional language.
So should we add that to ours?
Yeah, I would recommend that we do.
Right.
Okay, so make that part of the motion that we add to other municipalities and county. Or what was the wording that
Unincorporated county is
and unincorporated county outside the city boundaries. Okay.
What if we
Municipalities.
limit municipal street connections to existing plan connections only? Or limit city street connections to existing plan connections only?
Yeah.
well,
We want it to say
But then-
technically every street is a
intermunicipal.
city connection to other city streets,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
that's why, yeah, it gets tricky.
Intermunicipal, so it would need to be in two places, really. I think intermunicipal and unincorporated county street connections to existing planned connections only. Ensure that the street connections to other municipalities outside the city boundaries and unincorporated county, or just put municipalities and unincorporated county, comma, outside the city boundaries. I think just to be safe, I would put it in both places. That's my opinion.
I agree. I think it should be in those two spots that you just
Okay.
outlined.
Okay. Thank you, Troy. I wasn't able to attend Tuesday because it was my daughter's birthday, so I appreciate that. Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. So it doesn't say on the agenda that we're recommending this. It just says we're holding a public hearing. Is
On
that
the
okay
cover
if we
sheet, it
go
does
ahead?
say that. So yes. Yeah, whenever you have a public hearing, there's always going to be a motion made.
Okay. All right, I will make a motion that we recommend the changes made to the general plan transportation element to include and unincorporated counties after the word municipalities in both places.
Okay, we have a motion by Sylvia. Do we have a second?
I second it. Ed.
Okay, we have a second by Jed Bush. Is that right?
Ed.
Ed, sorry, did I say Jed? I'm looking at the word Jed on my screen and talking. Ed, thank you. And so is there any question on that? And Marla, is the way she worded that clear enough for you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye, and we're going to do roll call. So let's go through the three people at the Alpine City Hall, and then we will go in the order of John, Troy, and myself.
So starting with Ethan or me?
So you need to, so you go ahead and start, Sylvia, and say your name
Aye.
and then your vote.
Ed, I.
Ethan, I.
John, I.
Troy, aye.
And Jane, aye. Okay, so any opposed, nay? It was already unanimous, so we're good. Okay, perfect. We will move on then to our second item, action item on the agenda, which is the training materials. We're going to continue our discussion on what type of training materials we would like to see for the planning commission members we have now, as well as new planning commission members that may come. I think that Alan should have forwarded some updated information that then I think Austin sent to everyone. So Austin, do you want to give us an update on where we're at with that?
Yeah, so just a few hours before the meeting tonight, Alan sent me an email with an updated draft. So from the one that you have in your packet, so if you all check your emails, you should have that now. It's an update to the same version that we have in our packet. He's added like some hyperlinks in there to the videos, and then just kind of refined some of the language. And so if you all want to maybe take a second to take a look at that, but he's proposing that draft that he sent be included, that be the training material plus the David Church document, and basically attach that to the rest of the training material.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not making a motion right now, but I think I would like that we table this for two reasons. One, we haven't had time to look at the material, and two, because Alan's not here and he's kind of the driver on this.
Yeah, well, we could just have a discussion. We're not going to really adopt anything right now. We're just going to have a discussion on it. I talked with Alan right before the meeting, and he just wanted you guys to look through what he had. He thought some things that would be important to add to it might be some of the Robert's Rules of Order and some things like that. So it's fine to, like you said, not everyone had a chance to get the updates. But I think we can just take a minute right now. Let's just give everybody a couple of minutes to kind of look through this and take a look at this, especially the section, I believe it's on page 4 of 6, where it says bringing a motion before the commission. And he outlines Robert's Rules of Order. Are we actually using Robert's Rules of Order, Austin? Because it seems like when David was here that new method we adopted was not the same as Robert's Rules of Order, was it?
Yeah, so we about a year ago, maybe a little longer than that, we adopted rules of procedure for the Planning Commission.
Right.
And they do stray a bit from Robert's Rules of Order. So Robert's Rules of Order are great. It's kind of a good fallback for any public meeting that you're having. You can just fall back to those, and that's a good, you'll be safe, you'll be running the meeting accordingly. So
Right.
that being said, the rules of procedure that we've adopted there are a few differences to it.
So do you have a copy of the rules of procedure that we were asked to follow? And was that adopted by the Planning Commission? I believe it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
In some instances, it works really well. It's a struggle in other instances. The rules of procedure basically stated that we shouldn't even have a discussion until there's a motion on the table, which was hard for me because I didn't know what kind of motion we wanted to make often until we had more information in front of us.
I agree with that.
But I think we need to find out if that was an official adoption and have a copy of that too, Austin.
Yeah, it was officially adopted, and I can get you all a copy. So
okay. If it's something that we're not going to follow, I kind of hate for it to be adopted because I feel like we could be brought into question if we're not following the rules we've adopted. So I think maybe we should take a look at that.
Well, if there's a conflict between Robert's Rules of Order and what we've agreed to do, we ought to pick one or the other.
Right. That's kind of my point. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we're following Robert's Rules of Order in a lot of ways.
We are, but that doesn't mean we should be, because if that's not what's adopted, we need to look at what we have adopted. So I feel like that would be a good thing to review. That's my only question on these. I don't know that we need a formal motion that says this is what we're going to send people. Do you, Austin, that says this can be some training materials, then that these are training materials that everybody agrees on and thinks are good, and that we send out to people? Or do you feel like this needs to be formally, these are the training materials? Because we could come across other videos that are additionally good that are put out in a year that we would want to add to it. So I don't know that this has to be a set approved document.
I mean, it could be a living document that you update on a regular basis. I mean, maybe you could make it an agenda item once a year. The Planning Commission revisits this and updates it.
Okay.
It could be good. And then it could also be it's also recommended that the Planning Commission do a training once per year.
Right.
And so this could be maybe part of our training. We go over our training materials, and then they can be updated at that time. That might be the appropriate way to do it.
Right, that would be a good idea. Now, do we have a month set aside that you set up training? Or are you waiting for me to request you to arrange training?
So we've usually tried to do that towards the beginning of the year when things kind of slow down. January, February is usually the time that we do that. This year we had, the COVID-19, and so that kind of threw things off, and we weren't meeting in person. And so thoughts of, having a training, usually we'll have someone from the ombudsman office come and give a physical training. And so we just haven't done that this year. It's been kind of up in the air and all over the place. So
should we plan on that in January then?
Yeah, but definitely I think we're going to try and do that for sure next year. And if we wanted to do one this year, we can try and squeeze one in as well. So.
Well, I was just thinking if we're going to do one in January, it doesn't make sense to do one in October or November by the time you get on their schedule. And then
we're so close to January already.
Exactly. So I'd rather that we just wait till January, preferably, and then we're on a schedule. And we've all kind of done a lot of training on our own by watching these videos and going through, what we've been through the last few months. The other thing, so my comment would be, I want to review what the rules of order are that we have adopted. If you can get us a copy of that, and then we can compare those and see if we want to keep those, and if not, if we need to adopt different rules. Were those rules brought forward by anyone in particular that they requested both the city council and the planning commission adopt those?
So what was happening is the city council was renewing their rules of procedure. And so at that time, it came to the attention that the planning commission didn't have anything like that. And so the thought was, let's put something together. And so we kind of took what the city council had and adapted it to the planning commission. And that's the document that was eventually adopted.
All right. Well, if you'll send us out all a copy of that, that would be awesome. And then if we can state, let's add into our training material that we actually do a training every January, or we could at least say Q1 of every year, to give a little flexibility in case the ombudsman's schedule doesn't match. So we could say Q1 every year, an in-person training will be held. The other thing I did want to bring up, and I know that you just forward this information to us, but I think it would be nice for everyone to know when the conferences are that they have the option of attending. It's really hard to get to them when you work full-time as well, but I know that I have been to a couple of those and they've been really helpful. So do you know what the schedule is on the, I can't think of the organization name, but you'll know what I'm talking about.
So, well, the Planners Association does a meeting once a year, and Sylvia's attended that. And so that, I don't know, that could be one that you're thinking of.
Yeah.
And there are trainings there, and they do go over, so this is one of the things they go over, and they go over a lot of things that actually would be very applicable to the Planning Commission.
Right.
That's something usually in normal years, we would get a notice, invites, and they hold a live event in September, and they usually get together and location. And
yeah, one time it was a Thanksgiving Point, one time it was somewhere we had to travel.
Yeah, there would be travel, and typically in the years past, the city's covered that, where planning commissioners could go and travel would be covered. And that
usually only a couple of people were able to go, but then they could report back. So
right.
Have they mentioned what their schedule is going to be like? Did they just cancel their event for this year? Did they do it remotely? What did they?
They canceled the event this year, and they're just having kind of an awards thing. So there's no training conference.
No training involved. Okay.
It's just
so. Do they have the schedule out for 2021 yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So just as soon as that's out, is that typically September?
Yes. Yeah. It's usually the beginning of September.
Okay. It would be kind of nice to just sort of have that on the calendar and maybe put that into for additional training. September, the Association of Planners, is that what it's called?
Yeah. It's the APA Utah
Yeah.
chapter.
So that's another thing. Can you think of other items like that? Those were the two that came to mind for me. As far as ongoing training, staying involved, so we know what's happening in Utah.
And then, you know, another group that does it is the Land Use Academy of Utah. They also do trainings throughout the year, and so you just kind of have to keep your eyes open when they're doing those trainings. I don't know if they have.
Do you know if they're at a regular schedule?
I know that they kind of do them in the summertime, but I don't know if there's like a set date.
Could you find out for us if there is a set month that they do that every year?
Yeah.
Because for me, if I don't know what's coming, there's no way I'm going to be like, oh, great, there's this thing in 3 weeks. Like for me, as far as work goes, you know, 3 weeks in advance, I'm like so overcommitted to too many things already. And so I really struggle.
I'll find that out for you. I'll
like
look
that,
into that, get some information on it.
So
That'd
a
be great.
funny thing is that I'm a liaison for the Alpine City for the Utah Central Association of Realtors government.
Yeah,
And so I keep my eyes and ears open when we have meetings.
that's great.
in their
That's great.
district, and that is something. And it's funny because they have a lot of people that represent other cities, but they never do Alpine. And I asked them why, and they said, because Alpine's just no problem.
That's interesting.
Just no trouble.
Oh, that's good. Well, on when you do go to those meetings to report back, would that be under communications or would that be at the beginning? If say Sylvia had attended a meeting, would like to report back to us what she learned at that meeting, would we need to add that as an agenda item, or could we just use that for communications, or where would that fit?
We could do that in communications.
She could do that in communications, I think,
Okay.
unless she really wanted to go, 5-10 minutes, a good long presentation, making an agenda item.
What kind of things do you think you'd want to hear? Mostly we just hear what's going on in other cities.
Well, I think, look at the things that we've discussed recently, Sylvia, as far as lighting, lot size, building pad, combining lots, buildings that are, homes that are much bigger than those around them, how that's affecting real estate values, all those kinds of things I think would be important for us as we plan. So you think about anytime you're planning your city and anything that you learn from the realty market that would affect individual homeowners in Alpine would be worth learning about, I think.
What's always interesting about one of those, and I've attended one, I think with Sylvia actually one time, is they have lots of numbers on, what's the growth like right now in Utah and what's the projected growth going to be like. And it's often interesting to see that because that does impact Alpine.
Right. And when it comes to multi-use housing or low-income housing, any of those things, any of the things that we have on our radar, if you learn anything about those, even just like, oh, this is an interesting thing that I learned, and just kind of FYIs, I think the more knowledge we have, the better decisions we can make.
Okay, I'll pay more attention.
And then any of us who might serve on other committees too, I know Ed has been very involved with Lambert Park and nature and some of the things like that for our community. I think anybody who serves in any capacity, whether it's on a school board or anything like that, if you have things that you think will help educate us, I would love to encourage everyone to bring those up in communications. Obviously, if it's something really in depth that you feel strongly about, then we'd look at an agenda item. So any questions about that? Do you guys agree with me on that, or do you? Okay. I just want to do everything we can to become more educated. We're a fairly young group, and we just, want to actually, really educate ourselves as much as possible so that we can be as effective as possible as soon as possible. So, okay. So I don't think we need to do any further, but I would ask if everyone will please read through entirely the information that was sent to us, just at the beginning of the meeting. Take some time to look through that in its entirety and read through the letter from David Church. And I'll make note of the things that we'd like to add to that as far as any kind of planning, scheduling for the year, so that we know when other opportunities for training come up. And then Jed or Austin, if you hear of any committees or organizations that you think would benefit for one of us to, kind of stay in association with, let us know. Okay.
Definitely.
All right, great. Is everybody okay with us moving on to the next item then? Okay. Let's see, let me get back to the agenda here. Okay, so the next thing that we'd like to discuss is the building code and ordinance issues for outdoor lighting. We're going to continue our discussion for an ordinance on that. So go ahead and introduce that, Austin.
Okay, so we're going to continue our discussion. This is continuing from the last meeting. And so since the last time that you've looked at this, there's been a few more things that we've added in addition to the packet from the last time. So you'll see some examples that Ed put together. He found some examples from some neighboring communities, Highland, Pleasant Grove, Lehigh, what their outdoor lighting ordinances are. And so that's in the packet that you have with you tonight. Mm-hmm. And then also we've provided an example from Torrey, Utah, where they have a dark sky lighting ordinance. And so that's been included in the packet. I think we kind of, in the last meeting, there was discussion about the dark sky and that maybe it's just not realistic for Alpine at this point. But so that's, probably more of an example than anything. But at the end of the last meeting, we did conclude that there were 3 items that we definitely kind of want to look at more carefully and maybe include in our ordinance. And so the 3 items were sports court lighting, maybe have some kind of restrictions or limits on that lighting. Those especially the new sports courts, they have brighter new LEDs that are brighter and shine, and so that was the number 1. Number 2 was looking at a light curfew, which I think everybody kind of agreed midnight sounded like a good hour to do that, where all lights should be shut off except with the exception of security lighting. So like motion sensor, motion detected lighting, that could come on, but it would be on a timer so that it would go off after a certain amount of time. And then finally, the 3rd item that Planning Commission outlined was city street lights. Jed mentioned that there is a street light across the street from City Hall at Legacy Park that is a dark sky street light. So it doesn't shine up in the sky, it just shines straight down. He invited everyone to go take a look at it if you had a chance. So something the city could do is moving forward, we could maybe make it so that all of our city street lights are dark sky compliant. That's something that could be looked at. So those were kind of the 3 things that the Planning Commission outlined, and it's coming back tonight for further discussion. So.
Okay. Did we have any idea of the cost of those street lights, exchanging those?
Jed, do you have those numbers?
Said it was pretty expensive.
Idea?
They are expensive. Although I will say they're approximately the same cost as our current lights. I want to say the fixture alone is around probably $1,200 to $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
But typically the way other cities are doing that, when a street light breaks, they replace it with a dark sky compliant one. So they don't necessarily go run through the whole city and spend $1 million.
Yeah. When we have new developments, are they required to put in the street lights for that development?
They are, and we could easily change our detail or our standard to the dark sky compliant fixture and have them switch to those.
I like that idea. Have you guys usually aren't here in the evening, but where, I think we changed it to Bertha's Court. It was Adams Court. That's a development that Will did right off Grove Drive, a circle. Do you know where that is, Jed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just had like
the street light that he put in there is so bright that every time I come around the corner, I'm like, whoa. And it's really weird. I don't know what the difference is. I don't know if it's the lumens or the type of light,
No, they have a setting on them, and I tell every single contractor who picks up the lights to turn the setting down, and about half of them don't. So
okay, yeah, it is so bright. It's crazy.
this is the first I'm hearing of Bertha's Court. We can have it turned down easy. That's no
will
problem.
you do that? That would be awesome. But that was, you know, when I saw that, I was like, wow, yeah, definitely these dark sky lights would be an improvement, I think. So how do the rest of you guys feel about moving forward, changing our standard for those lights?
I'm absolutely in favor of it. Also, if you'll recall, last time I said I was going to look for grants, and I did that. I even called Rocky Mountain Power to see if they knew of anything, but the person I spoke with wasn't very knowledgeable. She gave me like 7 pages of stuff to look through. And I haven't really done that yet, to be honest. I did find a few places where companies could get financial assistance in changing their lights to, well, to dark sky, they call them. And then there's a couple of associations, one in particular that actually gives designations that are called dark sky designations. And I found that there are we have 9 state parks that have dark sky designations. One of them being Dead Horse Point.
Dead Horse Point?
Well, yeah. There's no out there.
Yeah.
That's so far out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, but it's beautiful though.
Yeah, that's funny.
So, you know, I mean, there's a goal for us if we wanted to even try and get dark sky designated. There's just all kinds of stuff, and I'll refine that and find out more information as we go. But like I said, I didn't find anything for cities, but I did find for companies, and we can disperse that information out to our businesses in the area.
That's great. I like that. So go ahead.
When we replace a light, this is probably a stupid question, but when we replace a light, do we replace is it just the fixture on the end of the pole, or we don't replace like pole or anything, do we? It's just
just the fixture on the end.
Okay.
Yep.
I was just wondering if we had like a certain style we do, or you know what I mean? Does Alpine have a certain style of?
We do. Yeah, we actually have adopted a residential and a commercial style. The residential ones are just a little more generic. The commercial ones have the Alpine City logo on them. And if you drive down Main Street or look in some of those developments around the roundabout, you can see that commercial development style. It has Alpine City written on it. It's just a little more decorative.
Yeah, and I don't know that we would want to replace that, Jed, unless can you maintain that decorative design with a different style of the bulb on it, or?
Yeah, so the one that's up by City Hall right now, that would be a residential style, but obviously I agree. We want to keep our decorative Alpine City style as well. So we would need to work with the light companies to see what they could do to come up with something to replace that.
Okay, so yeah, so I wouldn't want to change that. I did look at that light fixture last week as we left, or last meeting as we left the building, and I could see the advantage of that definitely. Do you want to bring back to us how that would be, how we would have that in the ordinance, as far as, you know, what are do we need to drill down to the specific requirements we would want on that?
So it's already, so our light details and fixtures are already in the Alpine City standard specs and details. So it's really just a matter of changing our standard specs and details and just changing that detail out. It's really not a big deal.
Okay. All right. Does everybody agree that we should move forward with that one portion and put that to rest? Okay. All right, let's do that. And that would, Jed, however we do that, we would want to do it with any new development and any replacement bulb, or any, you know, anytime a fixture needs to be replaced.
Aside from developments, what about just new residential construction?
Well, that's what she means.
I mean, it's like individuals though.
Well, they wouldn't have a street light that they're responsible for. Only the person putting the subdivision in, the new development, they're the people responsible for the street light. So the new development on homes would be a separate issue. Are you,
Using the sport court that they want to light, something like that.
right, that's a separate issue here.
Okay.
So we're just talking about just street lights right now. So, okay, so then you're right, Sylvia. So then let's move to the athletic courts or the sports courts issue, which is, I think, the next one that's easy to look at. Looks like here they're basically saying that any athletic courts having a type of structure exceeding 6 feet in height, including fencing and lighting, shall require a building permit. Do we already have some type of building permit requirements for sports courts?
Yes, I mean, well, I should say some of them, they do come through. I would say, but you could argue that it doesn't, if they're not putting in lighting, it wouldn't require a building permit. But if it does have
Right.
lighting, it should have a building permit.
Yeah, otherwise you're just pouring concrete pad.
Right, yeah, if they're just pouring a concrete pad and they're calling that a sports court,
Right,
that doesn't require a building permit.
okay. But if they're putting lighting in, at that point, it does require a building permit.
Right.
And what do you think of this? This says exceeding 6 feet in height.
Well, so what you're referring to,
Highlands.
oh, Highlands, yeah. So exceeding 6 feet in height. That's probably a good standard for residential.
Mhm.
You probably don't need a big, tall commercial tower shining on your court at night.
Mhm.
So I think that's reasonable. We do have something in our ordinance right now for like fences for sports courts and those types of things. If they can get an exception from the city planner to have taller fencing for those types of needs. And so, maybe that could be something kind of similar if they wanted to have lighting and they can justify having it taller than, I don't know if we want to say 6 feet is the limit. And then if they want to go taller than that, they have to get an exception. Show that it's not.
Be some relationship to the fence size and the lighting, right?
Yeah.
A 12-foot fence, you would need lighting.
Right. If you had a 12-foot fence, it's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at most of these that do mention that, Highland talks about that that it shall, any supporting structures, including the light base, should not be in excess of 20 feet. Right. There's another town, I think it's the last one. What was it, Torrey, that you had? I think said 18 feet or something. So they do, they kind of limit the height.
Yeah. So there's a cap on it. There's
right.
some, yeah.
Of how high you can go up with something.
Well, yeah, the Highland one was 6 to 12 feet on the fence.
Right.
Right.
But
I think the lighting should be related to the height of the fence.
Yeah. Yeah. In their lighting, it says it shall not be in excess of 20 feet high, right? I actually liked the Highland ones because I thought they kind of got kind of tough and said it's up to the builder of the sports court to show that you're not creating light pollution and you're not, your lighting plan doesn't affect your neighbors,
They actually put a bulb restriction on the brightness of the bulb and some things like that.
Yeah.
So we kind of do that on our site plans. We require them to submit a photometric plan showing how it doesn't pollute their neighbors. We could do something similar.
Yeah, we do that for commercial. So maybe we do something like that for all sports courts and sports court lighting.
I actually talked to Lon Lott about this just on a little bit. And last time there was a comment that said, we didn't get many complaints or we haven't seen many complaints. He disagreed with that. From a city council perspective, he said there's lots of complaints on the sports courts and lighting in the city.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I feel like I'm lacking here as I look at this is I'd like to know currently if someone comes to Alpine City and says, hey, I want to build a sports court and I want to have a fence that's 12 feet high and I want to have lighting on it. I don't know what the ordinances are or the building code or anything like. I don't know what we have in place right now. So I don't know what to say that we want to add. So can we have that like pulled together, anything that would relate to someone who's putting in a sports court with lighting and a higher fence?
Yeah, I mean,
I've never given out a permit for a sports court.
Marla, what you
Okay.
I said I've never given out a permit for a sports court because it's flat work They don't have to get one for flat work. So they can paint their basketball lines, their pickleball lines.
Sure.
And then it's an interior fence. A few years ago when people complained about the deer jumping, we had a huge discussion about sports courts. And the planning commission decided that they could be taller, I think even taller than the 8 foot for the deer. Around this interior sports
fences
court.
can go taller than 8 feet. So,
Mhm.
yeah. The only thing that really limits it right now is if you're going to get like if you're going to have, I mean, they'd have to get a fencing permit if they're going to put fencing on it. That's one thing. As far as like the lighting, Marla, do we, I mean, if they want to put lighting in their yard, do we require a permit for that? If the house is already built, everything else is there?
Nope, because we don't require landscaping permits, and they come in with their landscapers and do all of this. So we have no idea what they're doing.
Oh, I mean, the only way that it's going to hit the radar is if it's a structure. So when it becomes a structure, it has a roof over it. When we can define it as a structure, then it's going to trigger the building permit requirement.
Right.
But if it's not,
So,
we don't have it in place right now.
Really, the
No.
athletic field, though, becomes a fencing,
It's really a fencing thing, yeah.
because that they'll want to, if it's a tennis court or a.
Because other than that, it's like you said, it's just a concrete pad if you don't put
right.
fencing on it.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. So how do we influence the lighting here then? Because, like I know, run electrical out to the corner of your yard and put a little light in your gazebo, something like that. But so if someone does build a basketball court and they want to put a 12-foot high light over their basketball court, really, to me, it seems like the only time that we would know about it is if there was a complaint about it. And at that point, do we have some type of an ordinance that we can say any outdoor lighting, whether it's on a sports court, blah, 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 has to meet this standard? Even if they don't come in for a building permit, do we have something that's in there so that we can notify them if there's a complaint that they need to comply?
We don't really have a lighting ordinance right now. So if that's what you're saying, no, we don't have anything in place.
So should we? That's, I guess what I'm saying is, if it doesn't sound like they're coming in with a building permit, if we want to address this issue, do we just need to put an ordinance in place for outdoor lighting, yard lighting, landscaping lighting, whatever you would call it, that would apply? That the landscaping lighting couldn't be over X feet high and has to stay inside your yard. And it seems like maybe that's the only place to put it.
So if you do look at our ordinances, if you look under the hillside protection overlay, there are actually lighting requirements that are in there. It says out for this, and this is just for the hillside protection overlay. It says outdoor lighting regulations. Outdoor lighting must be so organized and constructed so as to minimize the view of such lights from more than 300 feet away. I don't think anybody's ever paid attention to that one.
No, but it's also only that hillside area, which
Hillside, and to be honest, the hillside protection overlay is like the very high zones of the city. So,
it also says all street and all outdoor lighting plans in this overlay must be reviewed and a recommendation given by the planning commission and approved by the city council.
Okay.
That's something I don't know if that's ever been put in.
Right. I don't think that's happening.
I don't think that's taking place.
Okay. Well, so then that's one of, I guess this just shows what we're lacking as far as any kind of lighting ordinance then. So what is everyone's opinion about what they would like to see in a lighting ordinance regarding a sports court or any type of yard lighting?
Well, was it on the Highland one that I read where they should be shielded and pointing downward or something like that? I think that's pretty good word.
Yeah, it says it should be shielded or recessed so direct glare and reflections are contained within the boundaries of the parcel. And they also say that light standards shall not exceed 15 feet high. That's parking light standards though. Or the height of the tallest building, which is ever less. This is like street lighting. But
I like that language. I think it manages the issue. If we focus it on not spilling into a neighbor's or off the property, we don't have to concern ourselves with wattage levels. I really think that's probably the main part.
The easiest.
Yeah, I agree.
And I agree. I just think we need to keep this simple because I don't want us to make something up that is just, there's no way of enforcing it. I mean, it's already going to be difficult to do anything about. It's just going to be if people complain. And so I just think this needs to be very simple, very basic to control some of the extreme cases.
Yeah, we can always add on more later if we have to, but.
Yeah. I feel the same way. So
you'll want to be cautious about adopting any kind of ordinance that restricts types of lighting because honestly, so much of Alpine is 80% built out right now. And so, I mean, how many people already have lighting? And our code enforcement is going to get real busy real quick if all of a sudden they're all out of compliance. You know what I mean? So we need to take that into consideration.
You know, one thing that we could do is with, you know, there's people who have been here for a long time. Adding a sports court on and that type of lighting is pretty common after the home is already built, I feel like. Outdoor lighting, landscaping changes, pools with gazebos, you know, things like that. So I think we should maybe have something drafted up that's just really basic surrounding those, looking maybe mirroring something from Highland.
So, I mean, do we want to require a photometric plan for sports courts and require that they get a permit when they have lighting on a sports court? I mean, could be one way to go about it. Or, I mean, what are we after? Is it?
I guess that was kind of my question is what are the options? What are the options for doing this?
I say no to the building permit.
Yeah.
As the building permit person. I think you just have a campaign of let's have just like the noise ordinance that they don't want you partying after a certain hour to, you know, have your lights lowered after a certain hour. And then it's going to be on a complaint basis. Somebody's going to call in and then our code enforcer is going to have to go out and say, hey, guys, you got to have your kids shut it down by 11 o'clock. You know, you're upsetting the neighbors sort of thing.
But we do have to have, I mean, I agree with that, Marla, as far as it being a little bit more informal that way, but we do have to have in our lighting ordinance that if you add this should be the lighting, I guess. So that's what I'm saying is, can we just add it somewhere without any kind of formal process? Can it just be part of our lighting ordinance?
Absolutely. Yes. You could have verbiage in there that's, you know, sports court lighting should, you know,
should be no higher. This says like no higher than 15 feet in height, you know, not be higher, more intense than a 300 watt bulb, should spill over into the neighboring lots and should be a, whatever it says, like the direct, you know, the down, they should be shielded or recessed so direct glare and reflections are contained within the boundaries of the parcel.
Yeah, absolutely. We're saying the same thing, and that will give our code enforcer teeth. So when we have to call that neighbor back and say, hey, just so you're aware, we have a new ordinance, blah, blah, blah. We need you to shut it down.
Yeah.
So the problem with creating an ordinance like that, let's say you would limit, okay, you can only have a light pole 15 feet tall. Well, now we have to create a new process for getting a building permit application for all lighting in the yard, which we've never done before. So that's a whole new thing that we would be creating. Someone's going to have to review those plans. Someone's going to have to go out and inspect those. So then we'd have to have an inspector.
Okay.
You're creating a lot of work.
So how could we do it?
Like we mentioned in the last meeting, might be an easier solution where you just say at midnight, no matter what kind of light you have, you got to shut it off.
Well, could we say though that any landscaping or lights on your property have to be shielded or recessed so that direct glare and reflections are contained within the boundaries of the parcel?
I think we
Yeah.
should.
Yeah, I like that one.
I mean, that's not going to require anybody to inspect or anything. It's just there. And if there's a complaint,
Then we'd handle it on a complaint basis. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Well-
kind of what I wanted. I don't want to do anything that adds any kind of a process to it. I just want it to be, well, this is an idea anyway. I'm not saying, but what if we just had something that was listed in there and people can be made aware of it through the newsletter, whatever, to say, you know, just a reminder about lighting and noise, blah, 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 blah. But then if we have complaints, we can say, hey, just so you're aware, your lighting needs to stay within your own parcel. And so if you could get these swapped out so that it's more recessed and or put some type of a cone over it so it directs on your own property, and that brings that into compliance.
Yeah. Because apparently it's a problem, right? I mean, Lon Lot said that there are a lot of complaints.
Yeah. I think it's understandable that it's a problem. Like I've seen some of those pretty lit up. I do think as well, though, that having the lights out at midnight is the other thing.
You know, I asked people around my neighborhood about the midnight, and they thought for the people who are affected by this, they thought midnight was too late. They said,
Okay.
if you're talking about the winter months and you have school things going on, having somebody out at 12 midnight with bright lights shining around is not what they're looking for, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
we would discuss though.
12 midnight was kind of on the late side.
Mm-hmm. We talked about though, like Christmas lights and things like that. How do you know, is that an exception? Is it okay for Christmas lights to be 24 hours a day? And how bright is somebody's display of Christmas lights if they're flashing? I mean, we could also do that, that Christmas lights are fine unless the display is, I don't know.
The other thing we have to account for is that people now have for their walkways and stuff, solar lights which don't turn off, right? So,
right.
So
Pretty dim by midnight.
They're typically very dim, but
you know,
you're right. I have those. I have those all.
You know, there are, in the summer months when it's light out, the solar lights may last beyond midnight, or
all night.
And that so we have to be careful not to ordinance not necessarily kind of walkway solar lights out of the.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that the light curfew only pertained to sport court lighting.
Did we want it to pertain to I think one of the things that the mayor wanted to address was the overabundance of lighting in the eaves. I don't know how though. I really don't know that that's.
Yeah.
I don't know that we want to go there is my opinion.
I don't.
Yeah. I don't think you want to go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been on 4800 West.
I know. Yeah, there's some pretty bright ones, but the other thing too is we could just do an education program where we kind of be a good neighbor, dim your lights type of thing. I mean, I think there's a lot of just community outreach things that we could do to try to educate. I mean, there's a certain group of people who are just like, I don't care. It's my property. I'll do what I want.
Unfortunately, a lot of those systems don't dim. I mean, they're just
Right.
driven by the wattage of the bulbs that are put in, right? They're not, there's no adjustment
On a
to,
dimmer switch.
right, to dim
Yeah.
everything down. They either come on or they're off, right? I mean, I was reading this hillside protection one because where I live up towards the hillside in the Lambert Park, Box Elder area, there was a Parade of Homes house that's been built up there and it gets lit up. I mean, I can see it as I drive into Alpine,
Right.
up on the hillside in there. I mean, it's got a lot of lights and they stay on all night, so again,
All the new houses have these lights in the
They
evening
do.
right now.
Yeah.
And is there a problem with having those lights turned off at midnight? Do you guys think that that's too harsh? I mean, to me, anything after midnight should just be our street lights. Although my husband did bring up a contrary point to this, which is that our area, the street I'm on, doesn't have any street lights. And so if the neighbors turn off their porch light, it is pitch black. No matter what time of night it is, and you can't hardly see to walk down the sidewalk, So it really varies based on the age of the neighborhood, how well they are lit. Which maybe brings up another thing. If a neighborhood doesn't have street lights, can the city put one in? Apparently, it must have met code at the time the neighborhood got put in. Jed, how do we handle that?
Don't have a clue.
Okay. I love talking about these things.
One of the areas that's close to where I live is Alpine Cove,
Mm-hmm.
right, which doesn't have streetlights. And when I talked to some people about this, what they were worried about was that sometimes, with teenagers and whatever, they're coming home later than
Right.
midnight, and something like this would restrict them from keeping
Leaving the lights on.
They're keeping their lights on till their
Yeah.
kids got home, right? So we
Yeah.
gotta, because there's no street lights in that area either. It's
Yeah. And that's what my husband brought up as well. And it's very, very dark. So
Are we getting a lot of complaints about house lights? I mean, because I don't know.
We've had one complaint about a very particular house and the lights in the eaves on that house.
mhm. So I think that's the point, is that
Other than that, no, we don't usually.
there has been a complaint, and the mayor foresees that could be a potential problem going into the future, as well as what Ed mentioned, that there are some of these lights that they may not be in the highest part of the hillside overlay, but they're up on the hill and they are very lit up. And what Alpine had tried to do before was keep the mountainside dark so it looks like a mountainside, not like a development.
Well, I think also what, Sylvia mentioned in terms of, the street where you're coming into Alpine, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Oh, I know.
I think the mayor looks at that and he worries about, what happens if that becomes more streets in Alpine,
Yeah,
right?
it's very, very
so,
bright.
And it's not only that, it's just that they started out with a few eaves and few lights under the eaves, and it just grows and grows. It seems like every year with the new houses, they have to have more lights under the eaves than the last year's house.
Yeah.
This is something, I don't know.
Well, okay, so let's go back to what we're trying to get done. So we've all concluded about the street lights and replacing the street lights. Are we in agreement on the recreational lighting in the yard, adding some wording that it needs to be recessed or directed so that it stays on your property?
Yes.
And that all recreational lighting be turned off by X amount of time, whatever we want to say that is. What time is the noise ordinance? What time does it go into effect?
10
I think it's 10 o'clock, yeah.
10, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I know that's pretty rough for like teenagers in the summer trying to play basketball on their court to say 10 o'clock. But I suppose if the neighbors call and complain, we can say, hey, it's after hours. Do you think 10 o'clock's too early for that, or 11 o'clock? What do you guys think?
Pretty early in the summer. I mean, sometimes.
I think so too.
Lightest months, it gets dark at 9 o'clock. So you're telling these people they can only use their hour.
Yeah, exactly.
An hour a day.
Yeah. Well, what if we start with midnight? Do you guys feel good about starting with midnight for recreational lighting? Okay. So what if we ask for then?
I would feel
recessed
that
or
midnight's
directed?
too late. I would seek a compromise to 11 then, rather than
Would
midnight.
you? Okay. Okay. Well, will we be having a public hearing on this?
If we decide to create a new ordinance, yes, we will.
We will, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, and we also want to know what the city council thinks too. So say we're toying with the idea of somewhere between 11 and midnight as a lights out for recreational lighting. We want the recreational lighting recessed and directed onto the property, and just leave it at that. And it will have to be complaint driven for enforcement, but it wouldn't add any extra building permits, inspections, etc. So we're not adding work for the city staff. Does that sound like that would be okay, Austin and Jed? Do you think we have any issue with doing that?
What do you think, Austin?
I mean, I think it's something that, I mean, if it was handled on a complaint basis, recreational lighting stays on your property, I think is a reasonable thing. And, you know, just to have those lights directed onto your property.
Mm-hmm.
As well as far as the lighting after a certain hour. If I think if you keep that towards the sports court or recreational lighting,
right,
or that's an easier pill to swallow than if we do it for all the houses, that's going to be.
I think it's going to be a nightmare.
That's too much.
I agree. Okay, so you guys probably need to run that by David Church too, or look at some wording around that. So kind of chew on that this week. And then as far as the
But I kind of think we're missing the main, like the main point we're skirting around, right?
which is,
Are we worried about the houses getting way too bright?
Right.
yeah. So that's the next one. So I wanted to do like a street lighting, recreational lighting, and now the next one we want to look at is home lighting.
Yes.
My biggest issue with the home lighting is I just do not know how we will enforce it or measure it. So any suggestions on that?
So does every home come through city building?
Sure, new homes do.
All new homes will come. So there's 2 steps to the home process. So one, we'll look at the site plan. We'll look at the drainage. We'll look at the setbacks. We'll look at the height of the home. Those are the things we look at the very beginning. Then if that gets approved, we have a plan reviewer that we hire, second party, Sunrise Engineering, that reviews the house to see if it meets building code. Well, lighting is not, you know, I mean, that as long as it's done proper electrical work, it's going to meet the building code. So that's not something that he's reviewing, and nobody, you know, it would be tricky to put that. I don't know where we would put that in the review process.
Yeah.
Because they're not checking the bulbs at that point. They're checking the electrical.
He's just saying, oh, they show an electrical line running to the eaves
Right.
of the house.
Mhm.
Does it
Yeah.
meet?
And it's done correctly.
Okay.
It
So what
passes.
you talked about how with the sports courts, you put the onus on the owner to prove that it wasn't too bright. And you do that with the house too, where you said, hey, we have this requirement. This is how bright your house can be from the street. You have to meet that.
Bring in proof that you meet that after your home is done before you sign it off.
Rather than having us approve their plan, we're just saying, make sure your plan is acceptable.
Can we use the same?
So, I mean, that would require like a photometric light plan, which is something that Jed reviews those on all the commercial buildings, right, Jed?
Yes, they're easy to review, but yes.
Can we use the same language as the hillside overlay? Not visible 300 feet away?
Are they gonna be on the
I
hillside?
don't know if that'll work.
Well, that checks all those
Good.
ways.
I think you'd still want to keep it on the prop.
If it says shielded, so that it stays on their property. I mean,
I'm not really opposed to lighting at all.
Yeah.
I just think there's a level where it gets too big. It's too much. So that we just have to say, what is that level? How can we define that?
So is this offending house broadcasting beyond their boundaries
oh yes.
presently?
Can you send us an address that we can go by at night and take a look at it so we can see what some of the problems are?
There's more than one, but they're side by side
Well,
There's several.
okay, what's the one?
They're all in a new.
Well, I don't know if they're talking about the same ones. I know the ones I'm talking about, Sylvia, they're the same ones that you're talking about, but I don't know if some of these offending houses are somewhere else, like near the mayor.
The north end of Chapman Court on the corner of Chapman and South Country Manor Lane. You can go
Okay,
look
thank
at
you.
those lights in the eaves there.
Okay, let me put that down. So you said that was the northeast corner.
Yeah, the corner of Chapman and Country Manor on the northeast corner of that intersection.
So may I suggest another one to look at? Kind of on the hillside.
Sure.
I would love to hear some.
So if you scroll up towards the Lambert Park Box Elder area.
Are you guys viewing a map on your
You
screen?
just have to wait for your computer.
Okay, no problem. I don't need to see it. Just give me an address.
Where are you now?
Loading. We're going north.
Okay. Keep on going. All right. Now, now move over to the right. And you see where there's a house there, a lot to the left of that. Right, that one, right? Wherever the address is, that one.
That's the home show one.
That's the home show one. Right. So
The end of Box Elder Circle.
right, end of Box Elder.
Approximate end of Box Elder Circle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Up above, yeah, in Box Elder, so above the Bowery and
Right before
okay.
North of
the
Lambert Park.
cul-de-sac, really.
Yeah.
Can you tell me where does this hillside overlay begin? Is that like just up in Fort Canyon or something?
I believe it's the same elevation where we service our PI systems. So
Yeah, I think it's the so where the pressurized irrigation system cuts off and culinary is used then, right?
So do you have a map of the city that shows that line?
This is in the hillside
that would
overlay.
be above that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because I'm
I can't see what you're seeing. So are you talking about that you're looking at something that
He's
shows?
talking about the home on Box Elder Circle. He believes, yeah, it is that home on Box Elder Circle is located above the line.
Okay, so
Let me share the county map here. So this is zooming out so you can get your bearings here. This is Lambert Park. Up here is the rodeo grounds. This is Box Elder. So you go past the Bowery, you come up into here.
yeah.
This is in the county here, Lambert Park Estates. And Box Elder Circle is this road right here on the border between the county and the city.
Right. Which brings up another point is that those in the county, we don't have any control over that too. So, which is fine.
Right. So yeah, we don't have any control over any of what goes on with these homes here.
Which is fine. Okay, so that gives us a couple examples, but what I was saying, Austin, though, is there a map of the city that shows me what streets are above the PI irrigation border?
Is there a map that shows what's in the hillside overlay?
Yes.
Jed, do you know if there's a map that has that? I don't know.
Because that's weird that if we have an overlay and we don't have a map of it, that seems silly. I think we need a map of it.
One of the land use maps or one of them shows the 5350 line on it. I can't remember which map it is. I believe it is the land use map, if I remember right.
Can you send that to us? Brian didn't send it to us.
So speaking of rodeo grounds, I think we need to be careful not paint ourselves into a corner and make sure that, we're able to do Alpine days with plenty of light and rodeos with plenty of light.
Well, we don't do rodeos after midnight,
Go to 11 though.
but we may have to change the lighting though. It is on city ground, maybe. I don't know. That's a good point. And what about all the Burgess Park and the baseball lighting and things like that? So we probably should take a look at that. City lighting should maybe be its own thing. But should be the same as far as respectful.
Well, we're just getting started, and I think we're off to a good start because we've planted a lot of questions into our own heads. If not,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think this is good for tonight. Personally, I think what we need to do is let's take a look at the two things that we all agreed on, and Judd and Austin, if you could find out from anyone that you need to check with, if we need to check with David or whatever, if we can just put something like that statement in the lighting ordinance and just enforce it on a complaint basis. So that would cover our recreational lighting, and that would cover our street lights. We also need to find out how that recreational lighting will affect the city as far as any of the city parks, the rodeo ground, or anything like that. If we need any kind of wording that changes this, should it say residential recreational lighting, you know, something along those lines, to make sure we don't, like Sylvia said, have a problem for the city. And then personally, I want to look through more of this, the housing. I really struggle with our ability to enforce something like that, even though it does seem like it's becoming a problem. I just don't know what to do about it. So I'd like to go look at a couple of these examples and see if actually looking at them gives us any more ideas. And I'd also like to look at that Hillside overlay map. What else do you guys want?
Just as we go through the process, just keep in mind, you don't want to create a problem that doesn't exist. So honestly, we don't, our code enforcement does not receive a lot of complaints about this type of issue.
Right.
This is not something that the phones are not ringing off the hook. So
yeah,
no,
I totally agree with you on that.
If it's something you think is a real problem,
yeah,
it should be addressed.
I agree with you on that, but the fact is the mayor thinks it's a problem and has asked us to investigate it. So I guess that's my only, we kind of went back to him to begin with saying, hey, we think we just need to let property owners, dictate what they do. But, we obviously, we can still do that with this lighting ordinance if we want, as we come back with these ordinances one at a time. But I do want to say that, hey, we fully investigated this and we just don't know how it could be. We don't think it's a big enough problem to do anything about. I don't know. Planning commission members, what else do you guys, thoughts you have on this, or more information you want, or what else do we need?
Well, just for everybody's edification, if you go to the Alpine City land use map, it does show that of the 5350 contour line. So you can kind of see what neighborhoods are.
Yeah, and that
so
can just
be
be
land
found on
use
our
map
website.
then.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Ed's so good at looking things up.
Jane?
Yes.
Austin said that we don't have the phone lines ringing off the wall about complaints. We do have the phone lines ringing about people begging to leave the lights on longer at Burgess Park so they can play longer, and also begging us to put lights in over at Creekside so they can use the parks over there.
That's a great point.
All summer long.
How late do we leave those lights on?
We have a timer over at Burgess Park, and I want to say it goes off at 11. On the tennis
houses being, especially where houses face it right there. What was that?
That was what was that?
Anyway, but what lights do we have at City Creek Park? Do we not?
We have none there, but people are asking for them.
Oh yeah,
they want them on the tennis courts, and they want pickleball courts built over there, and
that if they want the lights on, they're probably making noise with the lights on. And once the lights are off, they're not making noise anymore.
Well, we have a noise ordinance that I think goes till 11 p.m. as well.
Yeah, so the lights could go to 11.
That makes sense.
That probably should get brought up at City Council. I don't know if we have any say in that, but maybe we could mention that, Austin, as we report to City Council. I don't know. Has anyone come to City Council requesting that, Marla? Or
we were there with our young men playing basketball on those courts next to there, and that pickleball court there were lines.
Oh yeah, they're packed.
Yeah, over there.
We don't have enough pickleball courts, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No, that was a real thing.
I know over like at Healy Park in Cedar Hills, they have lights on there. I don't know how late they are, but I picked up my son at 10 playing pickleball over there. So I do think that's really a good point. I think people, if they're having to get in those daylight hours, especially during the shorter days of the year, that's probably a really, really great point. I don't know
I guess the only question I would have is, are these the people who live around the park that are asking for
Of
the
course
lights,
not.
or are there people that want to come and use the park? So
Yeah.
you have to differentiate between.
Yeah,
Gotta be a balance.
that's true. But if
Right.
it's a public park, I mean, you know, it's there. Obviously, if you're living next to a park, you're going to have some things. They've got the same thing at Burgess and other places. But that's a good point. You know, if they want that area to be a dark area. But I think that's more of a city council decision than a planning commission decision. So. Okay, anything else that you guys feel like you need? I'm hoping that the next time we meet, we can finish this up. I know I hate to drag it on forever. And like Jed said, if we can't come to a conclusion, or Austin said, maybe we're just, you know, that's our conclusion itself. I feel good about the two that we did discuss and get a little more information.
Turn left, we don't know whether to turn right or go straight, or just so many things keep coming up.
There are, and this, you know, the hard part of planning, I guess. Is everyone okay of concluding this discussion, or would you like to discuss it more tonight?
I'm okay.
I'm okay.
Okay. All right. Let's wrap the discussion up for tonight. I think we made some good progress on it, actually. So that, and this was supposed to be one of the easier ones, we thought. Oh, joy. Let's jump back to, sorry, let me get back to my agenda. So that's the last action item. So let's move into communications. Anyone have communications? Austin, Jed?
I just have, so just a heads up that we're going to be we're updating our trail master plan. So we're looking at that. We've been meeting with the trail committee, and we're waiting to hear some feedback from some of their members. And so you can expect to see that in an upcoming meeting.
Okay. Austin, did we follow up with the field trip to the Bangerter property? That's been a while.
Yeah, so that's been it's been on the back burner. It's something that we don't, so right now there is no, there's not a good plan for exactly what someone wants to do with that land. So if we go there, if we do the meeting, I mean, we're meeting on site to just look at, I mean,
basically it's just to familiarize everyone with what the land looks like, how big it is, what the contour is, what the views are, things like that. And last I talked to people on city council, they were interested, but either way, I think.
Did you already visit it, Jane?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And you did find it beneficial to go?
Yes, it was very beneficial. I did not understand the full size of the property, nor how it went into the to the creek there. And so I found it beneficial to envision what the property was and actually take a look at how it joins in 800 and things like that. So I don't think it would take more than 15 minutes if we could put it at the beginning of one of our meetings. And
if we wanted to do that, would everybody be okay if we were to start the meeting a little bit earlier than usual, like 6:30 or even 6? I don't know.
Yep.
And what are your feelings on that?
That'd be fine.
Do that.
That would be fine.
I just fundamentally have a problem with the landowner asking for feedback on what we're going to approve. It's not our role, is it?
Well, basically, the landowner isn't necessarily asking what we're going to approve, but they are saying that they would like us to take a look at it and listen to some of the ideas of, as planners of the city, we should be planning, like, what does our city need? Does our city want more commercial? Does our city want more residential? And so taking a look at the land and thinking about that, and as well as, I think at the same time, if someone were to come forward requesting more commercial, we would need to take a look at like the tax study and what the needs of the city are, talk to the city council about what their desire, the desire is. It could even turn into a poll or a survey from the city if they're interested in more commercial, things like that. But
Well, I kind of agree with John, though, that we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves and talking about something all theoretical. Like we don't have any idea what they're going to propose. It seems like we're just fact finding about something we have no idea what's going
no, that's fine. I mean, they basically just wanted to show up people and get their opinions. If you're not interested in doing it, that's fine. You can go individually, or we can set it to, one of our meeting agendas, and then we could, people can join or not join. So
we could do it as maybe even as a separate meeting. It doesn't have to be planning commission. It could just be a public meeting where we're gathering together. I don't know. We could do it that way, but the landowner, the way that they're approaching this, the way that they presented this to the city is, we're looking to sell this land, and we could just sell it right now the way it's currently zoned, or if the city has a vision for it, now's the time to rezone it, do whatever you want, so that when we sell it, it can be what you want it to be.
Yeah, exactly. And basically they're saying is, does the city want more commercial? Does the city want to try to add some things to our city that don't exist right now in our city? Or does the city want to just keep, this is kind of the last big piece of property, probably the only piece of property that could be commercial that we don't have commercial right now. So what is the city's interest? Does the city have interest in more commercial, yes or no? Or does the city just want residential and absolutely no commercial? And the reason why I find it interesting, I think that we should look at it, is we paid, I can't remember, like $10,000 or something to get a tax study done that did show that we could maintain more commercial than we had and potentially bring in revenue for the city. Right now, the revenue from the city, it will eventually be built out. And so new development will not be bringing in any income to the city. And so, looking forward to how we will fund things in the city is something that it was suggested that we should be discussing. And maybe this is more of a discussion that the Planning Commission would be interested in. My understanding was that there were Planning Commission members who were interested, or City Council members, excuse me, that were interested in also taking a look at the property. So I agree with the idea of just a public meeting for anyone who wants to take a look at the Bangerter property, the size of it, and for potential, look at its potential uses for the city. My personal opinion is we should do it, but I think you should check with the City Council and the mayor too.
I think it's all productive. I'm just thinking, if we look at the priorities that we've already surveyed the citizenry on, they want a rec center. They want more parks. And these are all non-productive developments for a developer to consider. And so unless we as a city are willing to put the money ourselves into those kinds of initiatives, I just don't know how productive that.
Right. Well, one thing, like, for example, a rec center combined with a commercial area, because rec centers bring people in, therefore there's commercial that goes with it. You have, a pool that hosts swim meets, and you bring in thousands of people to those, and then that adds a commercial area, so it's looking at it more. This land is so much bigger than what a rec center would be. It could hold a rec center and a reception center and an art center and multi-use housing, or something like that. So I think you should just find out if the city council is interested. If they advise against it, if David Church advises against it, then fine.
Okay, well, we'll look into seeing if we can schedule some kind of a meeting where we can go out there and look at it.
Yeah, I like your idea of just making it a separate meeting and seeing whoever's interested in just walking over it and seeing what it involves and just seeing what the last big piece of property in Alpine is, and any thoughts on it.
I think it'd be valuable, to see the property. I mean, heck, even if the property owner is not taking us on a tour, you know what I mean?
Right.
Just us to go tour it ourselves, I think would be beneficial. So
Personally, it was very beneficial for me. So.
Yeah.
Well, and for the record, we have 5 Tuesdays this month, so it'll be 3 weeks before we meet. Here
point.
again.
Yeah. And we could maybe put that on a Tuesday, and it could be like a 5:30, Jed or Austin, so that you guys don't have to stay late on a night that you're not normally there. We could probably make arrangements for some kind of a 5:30 or 6 o'clock. Literally 30 minutes is all it will take or less.
Well, I'm for it as long as we don't have to go after 11 o'clock with bright lights.
Sounds good. I like that idea, Ed. All right, any other communications? Okay, so let's move on to the approval of the Planning Commission minutes from September 1st, 2020.
I just have one question. Did Troy Slade do both the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, no, I did not.
I invited, John, was it you I invited to do the Pledge of Allegiance, or someone I invited
I
because,
wasn't at the last meeting.
Because I think
Oh,
you're
okay.
supposed to do
Probably
it.
somebody,
Oh, actually, I think I did it.
You do Pledge of
oh yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
did
right,
that.
it was Ed.
Right.
And then Ed's emailed some more corrections.
Yeah, I just had, was trying to clarify, it was our night light discussion. On page 6 on line 36, it says that Ed Bush said if the city amended the current ordinance, almost every single residence would have to make changes. Explained that other cities entertained the option of installing more light poles to spread more light on the ground. He noted that soffit lights create the same effect. And I wrote to Austin, and I really wanted to change this to that. I said, if the city created a dark sky ordinance, almost every single residence would have to make changes.
Okay,
Right? We wouldn't. be able
right.
to do
That's a
that.
good
And then I
catch.
said, I explained that other cities have ordinances to restrict light from light poles, restricting light from light poles to spread downward. And I thought that if we did something along that line, I thought soffit light should be governed by the same light pole ordinance if we were to go down that path. So that was kind of
So did you listen to
Yeah.
to make sure that's what you actually said?
Yeah.
well, I'm trying
And-
to, I actually
that was the meaning.
I
of
actually
the
talked
ordinance.
more, but I tried to compress it to be the summary.
Great. And you've sent those in, so Marla has a copy of those?
I emailed them to Austin before
Okay.
that.
I've forwarded that.
Yeah,
already
okay.
forwarded them to
Yeah.
Marla. So
Okay. Any other changes or? Okay, so we need a motion on this.
Well, how about if I make a motion?
Yay.
Approve the minutes of the September 1st meeting, changing Pledge of Allegiance from Troy Slade to Ed Bush, and then also including the changes that Ed sent in.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Troy, and all in favor of that. Let's just do our quick roll call real fast.
Oh, Sylvia Christensen, aye.
Ed Bush, aye.
Ethan Allen, aye.
John McKay, aye.
Troy Slade, aye.
Jane Greiner, aye. Okay, so meeting adjourned. Done. That's great. Hey,
I wanted to do that for an hour and a half.
Right. I was
Yeah.
waiting for that.
Austin, once you have the recording turned off, I just had,
She has
this is not part of the meeting. This is a question about my own home that I wanted to ask.
to close the meeting?
Oh, yeah, we do.
I did. Do we need a motion? Okay. Make a motion, we close the meeting.